The beeping started at 3:17 a.m. Dr. Jun Kim rubbed his tired eyes as he stared at the monitor. The pattern was unlike anything he had ever seen before. The signal came from deep space, far beyond the solar system. "This can't be right," he whispered to himself. The Korean Astronomy Center was quiet at this hour. Jun was alone with his discovery. He ran the tests again and again. Each time, the results were the same. This was not a natural signal. Someone, or something, was sending a message to Earth. Jun's hands shook as he picked up the phone. Within hours, astronomy centers across the world confirmed his findings. The news spread like wildfire. "Aliens," the headlines declared. "We are not alone." For 3 months, the world's best scientists worked together to understand the message. They finally cracked the code. It was an invitation and a promise of arrival. 97 days after the first signal, they came. The alien ship appeared suddenly in Earth's orbit, its surface gleaming like diamond. Governments around the world went on high alert. Military forces stood ready, but the visitors made no aggressive moves. "My name is Minji Park," the young diplomat said, looking up at the screen. She stood in the United Nations Hall, facing the alien who called himself Commander Solon. Solon did not look anything like humans expected aliens to look. His body was crystalline, with angles and facets that caught the light. When he moved, it was like watching a living gemstone. "We welcome Earth to the Galactic Consortium," Solon said, his voice translated by computers. "Your world has reached the level where contact is permitted." Minji felt a strange chill despite the warm room. Something in Solon's tone didn't match his words. "We are honored," she replied carefully. "What does membership in this consortium mean for Earth?" Solon's crystal body shifted colors, from blue to green. "We offer technological advancement, medical knowledge. The stars themselves will open to humanity." The world leaders in the room leaned forward eagerly. This was everything humanity had dreamed of. "And what does the consortium ask in return?" Minji asked. "Very little," Solon said. "Access to some of your mineral resources, biological samples for our scientific database, a fair exchange." The world leaders nodded. It seemed reasonable. Only Minji noticed how Solon's body flashed red for just a moment when he mentioned biological samples. Over the next week, agreements were signed. The aliens, who called themselves the Hanji, shared technology that solved Earth's energy crisis overnight. They provided medicines that cured diseases thought incurable. But Minji couldn't shake her doubts. "They're giving us what we want too easily," she told her boss, the Secretary General. "We should be more careful." "You worry too much," he said, dismissing her concerns. "Look at what we've gained already." The first Hanji mining operation began in Australia. They extracted minerals humans had never even noticed before. When asked what they used them for, their answers were vague. "Advanced propulsion systems," they said. "Nothing harmful." 5 Hanji ships now orbited Earth. They called themselves friends and protectors. At night, Minji would look up at the stars, at the glittering ships visible even to the naked eye. They were beautiful, those crystal ships, like perfect jewels against the black of space. But Minji remembered an old saying from her grandmother: "The prettiest poison comes in the shiniest bottle." As she watched the Hanji ships, Minji couldn't help but wonder, what was the poison these beautiful visitors had brought to Earth? And more importantly, when would humanity begin to feel its effects? 5 years passed. Earth changed quickly under the Hanji's influence. Dr. Jun Kim now worked at the new Hanji Human Science Center. His job was to help the aliens understand Earth's environment. At least, that's what they told him. One night, Jun stayed late in the lab. The Hanji scientists had left, thinking no humans were around. Jun was about to leave when he noticed a blinking light on one of their communication devices. Curious, he approached it. After 5 years of working with alien tech, Jun had learned more than the Hanji realized. He carefully touched the crystal panel. The screen lit up. Strange symbols flowed across it. Most were unfamiliar, but Jun recognized some. The Hanji language was complex, but not impossible to understand. His eyes widened as he translated the message. Resource Planet Earth. Status report. Mineral extraction at 47% of target. Biological sampling proceeding as planned. Human subjects unaware of true purpose. Jun's heart raced. He kept reading. Planet classification. Level 3 primitive. Recommend accelerated extraction timeline. These creatures pose no threat to consortium operations. His hands trembled as he accessed more files. The truth was worse than he imagined. The special minerals the Hanji mined were not just for their ships. They were building weapons. And the biological samples. They were studying human weaknesses, creating diseases that would only affect humans. Earth wasn't a new member of the consortium. It was a resource to use up and discard. Jun downloaded as much information as he could onto a small device. He had to warn someone. He had to tell Minji Park. She had been right to be suspicious. The next morning, Jun didn't show up for work. Minji, now a senior diplomat for Earth-Hanji relations, received a strange message from him. Meet me at the old observatory. Come alone. Earth is in danger. But when Minji arrived at the observatory, Jun wasn't there. The place was empty, except for a small data device on the main desk. Before she could pick it up, her phone rang. Ms. Park, said a cold voice. This is Security Chief Lomas. I regret to inform you that Dr. Kim died in a lab accident last night. A terrible tragedy. Minji froze. What kind of accident? A chemical spill. Very dangerous. The body had to be immediately contained. I'm sorry for your loss. The call ended. Minji looked at the data device on the desk. This was no accident. Jun had discovered something, and it had cost him his life. She quickly pocketed the device and left. That night, in her apartment, Minji viewed the files. What she saw filled her with both fear and rage. The Hanji had lied about everything. Earth was being harvested, and humans were being studied like lab rats. A message from Jun accompanied the data. They think we're primitives. They think we can't fight back. We need to prove them wrong. Minji stared out her window at the gleaming Hanji Tower in the center of the city. 5 years ago, people had celebrated its construction. Now she saw it for what it truly was, a beautiful knife at humanity's throat. Her phone rang again. She answered cautiously. Ms. Park, a man's voice said. My name is Tae-woo Han. I was a friend of Dr. Kim. He told me to contact you if anything happened to him. Who are you? Minji asked. Someone who knows the truth about our visitors. Someone who's been gathering others who want to fight back. Minji thought about Jun's last message. About the files showing what the aliens really thought of humans. We're seen as primitive, she said. Harmless. Yes, Tae-woo replied. And that's their biggest mistake. They never expected Earth's children to bite back. But we will. For the first time in 5 years, Minji felt something new. 3 days after Jun's death, Minji met Tae-woo Han in an old coffee shop. The place was nearly empty, perfect for secret talks. Tae-woo was a strong-looking man with serious eyes. He had once been a captain in the Korean military. Now he led something much more important. We've been watching the Hanji for 3 years, Tae-woo explained quietly. At first it was just me and a few soldiers who didn't trust the aliens. Now we have people all over the world. How many? Minji asked. Thousands. Scientists, soldiers, doctors, computer experts. People who saw the truth before most others. Tae-woo showed Minji pictures on his phone. Secret meetings in different countries. Labs hidden underground. Training camps in remote mountains. We call ourselves the Earth Defense Network, he said. EDN for short. What have you learned about the Hanji? Minji asked. They're not as perfect as they seem. Tae-woo smiled slightly. One of our members is a programmer named Yuna Lee. She's been studying their technology. The Hanji think their systems are too advanced for us to understand, but Yuna has broken into some of their simpler networks. Minji's eyes widened. That's impossible. Their tech is hundreds of years ahead of ours. That's what they want us to think, Tehu replied. But humans are good at figuring things out. The Hanji don't expect that from primitives like us. He took her to a small apartment building on the edge of the city. In the basement was a hidden door that led to a large room full of computers and strange equipment. A young woman with short black hair looked up from a workstation. Her fingers moved quickly over what looked like a piece of Hanji crystal technology. "This is Yuna," Tehu said, "our best hope for understanding the enemy." Yuna nodded to Minji, the diplomat. "Good. We need your help." She showed Minji her work. Somehow, Yuna had managed to tap into the Hanji communication system. The aliens used crystals for their computers, but Yuna had found a way to connect human technology to it. They think in straight lines, Yuna explained. Their security is very advanced against threats they understand, but they never protect against things they think are too primitive to be a threat. "What have you learned?" Minji asked. "Their weakness," Yuna smiled. She played a sound, a high, clear tone. Their crystal bodies vibrate at certain frequencies. The right sound can cause them pain, even crack their bodies if it's strong enough. Tehu added, "We've also found their ships have blind spots in their sensors, places where we can move without being detected." Minji looked around the room with new hope. "So we can fight back." "We already are," Tehu said. "Small things for now. Disrupting their scans, corrupting data, making mining equipment break down. But we need more information from the inside," Yuna said. "That's where you come in." Minji understood. As a senior diplomat, she had access to Hanji leaders and their plans. "If I help you, I'll be risking my life," she said. "We all are," Tehu replied. "But what choice do we have? You've seen what they plan to do to Earth." Minji thought about June, about the files showing Earth as just a resource to use up, about the biological weapons the Hanji were developing against humans. "I'll do it," she said firmly. "What's the plan?" Tehu smiled. "For now, keep doing your job. Be the perfect, helpful human. But watch and listen. Learn their routines. Find their weak points. And remember," Yuna added, "they don't think we're smart enough to be a threat. That's their biggest mistake." Minji nodded. The Hanji saw humans as simple creatures. They never expected Earth's children would know how to hide their teeth until the perfect moment to bite. Deep in the mountains of Gangwon Province, the resistance built their secret base. From the outside, it looked like nothing special, just an old mining tunnel. But inside, it was a hub of human ingenuity. Yuna Lee stood in front of a large alien screen. Her fingers moved quickly across the crystal surface. Next to her, Dawan Choi worked on what looked like a Hanji weapon, but with human changes. "Try it now," Dawan said. Yuna pressed a button. The weapon lit up with blue light. Dawan smiled. "It works. We've made it stronger than the original." Tehu Han entered the room. Over the past months, he had gathered hundreds of people who wanted to fight back against the Hanji. Some were soldiers, others were scientists, doctors, or just regular people who refused to let Earth be used. "How's our progress?" he asked. "Better than expected," Yuna said. "The Hanji systems are complex, but they have weaknesses." She pointed to the screen. "Look at this. They use digital security, but it's designed to stop other advanced aliens. They never thought to protect against simple, old human methods." Yuna showed them how she could bypass Hanji security by using basic computer code from the 1980s. The aliens had advanced so far that they forgot about the simple ways to break into systems. "They think we're too primitive to understand their technology," Dawan added. "But that's their mistake. We don't need to understand everything. We just need to find the weak spots." And they had found many. The biggest discovery came from Darwin's work with the aliens' crystal biology. He found that certain sound frequencies could damage their bodies. It's like how opera singers can break glass with their voice, he explained. The right sound makes their crystal structure vibrate until it cracks. In another part of the base, humans trained with modified Hanji weapons. The aliens had sensors that could detect their own weapons, but not when humans changed them. Minji Park visited the base once a week. She still worked as a diplomat, pretending to cooperate with the Hanji. This gave her access to valuable information. They're planning to build 3 more mining facilities, she told the group. 1 in Brazil, 1 in Russia, and 1 in South Africa. More resources to steal, Taewoo said bitterly. Yes, but it gives us an opportunity, Minji replied. They'll need to bring in new equipment. We can intercept it. The team worked day and night. Yuna found ways into the Hanji network. She could now read their messages and plans without them knowing. Darwin built weapons that could hurt the crystal aliens. Taewoo trained fighters. One day, Yuna made an exciting discovery. She found the Hanji's complete map of Earth and their mining plans. Look at this, she said, pointing to the screen. They've marked every place they plan to mine over the next 20 years. Darwin looked closely at the map. There's something strange here. Why are they so interested in these specific spots? He pointed to several locations marked as high priority. They weren't known for valuable minerals. Yuna zoomed in on one location. This is just outside Seoul. There's nothing special there. Unless they're looking for something we don't know about, Minji said. The group fell silent, thinking about what this could mean. Finally, Taewoo spoke. Whatever they want, they can't have it. It's time to make our first move against them. Yunha nodded. They think humans are simple and weak. They're about to learn how wrong they are. The resistance was ready to strike back. The communication chambers of the Kaldar flagship hummed with an eerie silence. Captain Rehan stared at the flickering screens, his 4-fingered hands trembling slightly. Something was wrong. Very wrong. At first, it had been small things. Whispers, echoes, strange broadcasts that seemed to slip through their supposedly impenetrable communication networks. Now, those whispers had become a deafening roar of psychological terror. Every communication channel was infected. Where once stood confident military chatter, now played memories. Painful, gut-wrenching memories that cut deeper than any physical weapon. A young Kaldar communications officer named Vrel watched in horror as the screen showed scenes from his home planet's darkest moments. There was the Great Famine that had killed millions. The civil war that had torn his people apart. The shameful defeat in the Crimson Nebula campaign that military leaders had tried to hide for generations. How? He whispered, his translator implant crackling with static. The broadcasts didn't stop. They showed everything. Personal memories mixed with historical failures. Private moments of weakness. Secrets that were never meant to be shared. The Kaldar communication network, once a source of pride and unity, now became a weapon of total psychological destruction. Across the invasion fleet, similar scenes played out. Soldiers heard the voices of lost loved ones. Commanders watched recordings of their most embarrassing military failures. Personal journals, secret communications, hidden shames, all became public, all became weapons. Captain Rehan felt the first true taste of fear. His own memories began to play across the main screen. There was the moment he had secretly betrayed his military oath, the time he had covered up a massacre of civilian settlers, the night he had drunk himself into a stupor after losing an entire battle group. Each memory was razor-sharp, cutting through his mental defenses like they were made of paper. In the Human Control Center, Yuna Choi watched the screens with clinical precision. Her fingers moved across holographic displays, adjusting the psychological assault with the skill of a surgeon. Each broadcast was carefully chosen, each memory precisely targeted to maximum effect. Psychological disintegration at 62%, she muttered to herself. A small smile crossed her lips. The Kaldar communication network, once their greatest strength, now became their most devastating weakness. Units began to break down. Soldiers stopped responding to commands. Commanders argued with each other, their hidden secrets now exposed for all to see. Trust was the first casualty. Unity was the second. Vrel looked around the communication chamber. His fellow officers were falling apart. Some were crying. Some were shouting. Some had simply shut down, their bodies present but their minds lost in a sea of exposed memories. Captain Rand tried to issue a command, but his voice came out as a broken whisper. The humans had found the perfect weapon. Not a gun, not a missile, but something far more destructive. They had weaponized memory itself. Outside the ship, the invasion fleet began to drift. Communication between ships became sporadic. Coordination collapsed. What had seemed like an unstoppable force just hours ago now looked like a collection of lost, frightened vessels. Humanity had turned the Kaldar's greatest strength into their ultimate weakness. Information was power. And in this moment, humanity controlled all the information. The world looked different now. What seemed like ordinary buildings, roads, and satellites revealed themselves as something far more complex. Humanity's true technological might emerged from the shadows, silent and deadly. Lieutenant Joy Park sat in a hidden underground command center. Her workspace was a maze of screens, blinking lights, and complex computer systems. Around her, a team of specialists worked with machine-like precision. They weren't soldiers in the traditional sense. They were digital warriors, and their battlefield was invisible. Conversion protocols activated. Jay whispered into her headset. Across the globe, what looked like normal infrastructure began to change. Traffic lights became targeting systems. Cell phone towers transformed into communication jammers. Ordinary satellites shifted their positions, becoming a global network of weapon platforms. The Kaldar thought they understood technology. They had conquered hundreds of worlds. Their ships were massive, their weapons advanced. But they had never met a species like humans. In Tokyo, a seemingly abandoned research facility hummed to life. Quantum computers that had been disguised as simple research projects now revealed their true purpose. These weren't just computers. They were living, thinking machines that could process information faster than any alien technology. Daniel Kim watched from a secondary command center. His fingers moved across holographic displays, coordinating the global counterattack. Each movement was precise, calculated. "Satellite network is now fully weaponized," he announced. Across the invasion fleet, the Kaldar began to realize something was wrong. Their advanced systems started to fail. Navigation became impossible. Communication channels collapsed. What they thought was their technological superiority became their biggest weakness. A Kaldar engineering officer named Krell tried to repair their main computer system. His hands moved quickly over complex control panels. But every fix was immediately countered. It was like fighting a living, thinking enemy that could predict and counter every move. The truth was simple. Humans had been preparing for this moment for decades. Every piece of technology on Earth was now a potential weapon. Smart cities became fortresses. Ordinary devices transformed into tools of war. The Kaldar had no idea how deeply humans had planned, how carefully they had prepared. Jay watched as entire Kaldar ships began to shut down. Their advanced energy shields flickered and died. Propulsion systems went offline. Navigation computers became confused, sending ships spinning in random directions. "Complete system infiltration," she muttered. The quantum computers were doing more than just attacking. They were learning, adapting. Every second, they understood more about the Kaldar technology. What seemed like a simple defense became a complete technological conquest. In orbit, the first Kaldar ships began to fall. Not destroyed by traditional weapons, but simply turned off. Their own technology became their prison. Their advanced systems became their tomb. Daniel looked at the global map. Hundreds of Kaldar ships were now drifting. Powerless, defeated by lines of code, by quantum calculations, by a technological strategy that was decades in the making. "They never saw us coming," he said quietly. The invasion fleet that had seemed unstoppable just hours ago now looked like a collection of dead metal, floating tombs in the darkness of space. Humanity had not just defended itself. It had shown the universe that technology was more than just hardware and weapons. Technology was intelligence, adaptation, preparation. And in this moment, humanity was the master of that game. The stars seemed to hold their breath. Thousands of Kaldar ships that had once numbered in the thousands were now reduced to hundreds. Each vessel drifted like a wounded beast, waiting to be put out of its misery. Daniel Kim stood in the boarding preparation chamber. Around him, a team of specially trained soldiers checked their equipment. These weren't ordinary soldiers. They were humanity's best. Trained for months, prepared for this exact moment. Target acquisition complete, a voice announced over the communication system. The boarding pods launched, silent, fast. Each one a precision instrument of war designed to pierce the hulls of alien ships. Inside the pods, soldiers wore suits that were more than just protection. They were advanced technological systems that could adapt to any environment, any threat. Aboard the lead Kaldar ship, Captain Rehan watched in growing panic. His communication systems were dead. His weapons were offline. All he could do was watch as human boarding pods approached. The first pod hit the ship's hull. Instead of a violent crash, it seemed to melt through the metal. Nanotechnology the humans had been developing for decades now showed its true power. The hull wasn't just breached, it was transformed. Soldiers moved like ghosts through the alien ship. Their suits blocked all forms of detection. Thermal signatures, sound, electromagnetic waves. They were invisible predators in a ship full of prey. Vrel, the communications officer from earlier, heard strange sounds. Footsteps that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Whispers in a language he didn't understand. Fear gripped his heart. Daniel's team moved with precision. Each corridor, each room. Controlled. Calculated. They weren't just fighting. They were systematically dismantling the ship from the inside. Secondary objectives achieved. Daniel spoke into his communication device. The Kaldar had never faced an enemy like this. Humans moved through their ships like liquid, like a thinking virus. They didn't just attack. They understood. They adapted. They conquered. On another ship, a different team led by Lieutenant Jai Park's tactical unit began their assault. Their mission was different but equally important. They weren't just destroying. They were collecting. Every piece of Kaldar technology was a potential weapon, a potential source of information. Quantum computers in their suits began processing alien technology in real time. What would take years of study was being understood in minutes. The Kaldar's most advanced systems became open books to human technology. Captain Rehan tried to organize a defense. But how do you defend against an enemy that knows your every move before you make it? His tactical systems were useless. His weapons were turned against him. The boarding teams moved like a single organism. Each soldier knew exactly what to do. Decades of preparation, of training, of technological development came down to these moments. One by one, Kaldar ships fell, not destroyed, captured, controlled, turned into tools for humanity's defense. Invasion force neutralization at 73%, a computer voice announced. Daniel looked out through the ship's internal camera systems. The stars seemed different now. No longer a place of potential invasion, but a battlefield that humanity had just claimed. The universe would never look at Earth the same way again. Humanity had not just survived. They had shown that they were predators, not prey. The last hope of the Kaldar invasion fleet rested on a single terrible weapon, a planet killer. The kind of device that could turn entire worlds into dust. Captain Rehan's hands shook as he activated the launch sequence. This was their final move. In the human command center, Yuna Choi watched the weapon's energy signature build up. Her fingers moved across holographic displays with surgical precision. Weapon detected, she spoke calmly into her communication device, preparing countermeasures. The planet killer was a massive device. It looked like a giant metal spine stretching through the heart of the lead Kaldar ship. Massive energy collectors began to spin. Destructive power gathered like a storm waiting to be released. Captain Rian felt a moment of hope. This weapon had destroyed civilizations before. It had turned entire planets into memories. The humans couldn't possibly stop it. But humans had been waiting for this moment. The weapon began its launch sequence. Energy built up. The ship's systems prepared for the most destructive moment in their invasion plan. Captain Rayhan allowed himself a small smile. This would show Earth the true power of the Kaldar Dominion. What he didn't know was that humanity had been studying this weapon for weeks. Every scan, every intercepted communication, every tiny piece of data had been analyzed. Yuna's fingers touched a final command. The planet killer began to change. Slowly at first, then faster. Its own energy began to turn inward. The massive weapon that was meant to destroy Earth started to consume itself. Weapon redirection complete, Yuna said quietly. Aboard the Kaldar flagship, alarms began to scream. Captain Rayhan watched in horror as the weapon he had been so proud of began to collapse. Its energy systems went crazy. The very technology that was supposed to be their ultimate weapon now turned against them. Daniel Kim watched from a secondary command center. His team had spent months preparing for this exact moment. The Kaldar's planet killer was now becoming their own funeral pyre. The weapon's energy began to increase. But instead of expanding outward, it collapsed inward. The ship's systems tried to compensate, but it was too late. Every failsafe, every backup system was already compromised. Full system lockdown, Daniel announced. The Kaldar flagship began to break apart, not from external attacks, but from the energy of its own weapon. It was like watching a living thing tear itself apart from the inside. Captain Rehan tried to give orders, but his voice was lost in the chaos. Alarms screamed. Systems failed. The ship that had been the pride of the Kaldar invasion fleet became nothing more than a floating tomb. Other Kaldar ships watched in horror. Their most advanced weapon, their last hope, had been turned against them by humans, a species they had considered nothing more than primitive prey. The planet killer's energy reached a critical point. In a brilliant flash that lit up the entire solar system, the lead Kaldar ship disappeared. Not destroyed by human weapons, destroyed by its own technology. Yuna Choi allowed herself a small smile. Invasion neutralized, she said simply. The stars seemed to go quiet. The Kaldar invasion fleet, once numbering in the thousands, was now reduced to burning wreckage. Humanity had not just defended itself. It had shown the universe a simple, terrifying truth. We are not your prey. We are the hunters. The solar system looked different now. Where thousands of alien ships had once threatened Earth, only burning pieces of metal remained. Silence hung in space like a heavy blanket. In the main command center, Yuna Choi removed her headset. She looked tired but satisfied. Months of preparation had come down to these few critical moments. Humanity had not just survived. They had won. Daniel Kim walked into the room, his special operations suit still covered in strange alien dust. "Status report," he said quietly. Yuna's fingers moved across the holographic display. Casualty numbers, technological captures, strategic assessments. Everything was being recorded. Every moment of this victory would become a lesson for future generations. "Complete invasion neutralization," she reported. 98.7% of Kaldar fleet destroyed or captured. Outside, cleanup operations had already begun. Satellites and specialized recovery teams were collecting pieces of alien technology. Every fragment was a potential weapon. Every piece of alien equipment a treasure trove of information. The world's governments, which had been secretly preparing for this moment for decades, now moved quickly. Military bases that looked ordinary suddenly revealed themselves as advanced technological centers. Research facilities that seemed simple became complex analysis stations. Lieutenant Jo Park entered the command center. She carried a small device, a piece of Kaldar technology recovered from one of the captured ships. "We're already learning," she said. Her voice was calm, but there was something else there. Pride. Determination. Daniel looked at the star maps. The invasion route of the Kaldar was now clearly marked. Hundreds of worlds they had conquered, civilizations they had destroyed. And now, they had met a species that fought back. "Send the message," Una said suddenly. Daniel nodded. He understood immediately. A transmission began to broadcast across multiple frequencies, not just in human languages, but in mathematical patterns that could be understood by any advanced civilization. The message was simple. "We are not your prey. We are the hunters." Across the planet, people began to realize what had happened. The invasion that everyone had feared was over. Humanity had not just survived. They had shown the universe something important. News broadcasts showed the captured alien ships. Scientists began to study the technology. Military leaders discussed the strategic implications. But underneath it all was a simple truth. Earth was no longer just a planet to be conquered. Earth was a planet that would fight back. In schools, in research centers, in military bases, people began to prepare. This victory was not the end. It was just the beginning. The universe had seen what humans could do when pushed into a corner. Una looked at the star map. She knew this was more than just a battle. This was a message to every potential threat out there. Humanity was ready. The few surviving Kaldar would be left as a warning, a living testament to what happens when you underestimate a species, when you think of them as simple prey. Daniel placed a hand on Una's shoulder. No words were needed. They had done what seemed impossible. They had saved their world. Outside, the sun rose over Earth. Another day, but everything had changed. The hunters had awoken.